Before we proceed further, I'd ask Councillor Flagg to provide us with the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Your Worship. We acknowledge that the land upon which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Adirondack, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe people. We are beneficiaries of ancient agreements, such as the dish with one spoon between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee, who agreed to share the abundance of the land through peace, friendship, and mutual respect. The two-row wampum by which the Haudenosaunee welcomed the settlers and agreed to share the land in mutual respect, and the Treaty of Niagara, considered a fundamental document by First Nations in all future relations and treaties with the British. We recognize that we have a responsibility to be stewards of this land in cooperation and collaboration with the Indigenous peoples, not only for one generation, but for all generations to come. We understand that we have an obligation to learn the lessons of our history, educate ourselves about the experiences of Indigenous people, and seek opportunities to heal the wounds that will result in reconciliation with our Indigenous sisters and brothers. Many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people live and work in Fort Erie. We stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wide stewardship of the lands upon which we live. We have the good fortune to live in a land of such abundance, diversity, and beauty. Let us be vigilant in protecting Turtle Island.
Thank you very much. Would you all please rise for the invocation?
We meet to serve our community and endeavor to be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Let us be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chambers minds that think and hearts that feel, so that in our deliberations we may display imagination, wisdom, and courage, and the will to do our work for the good of all.
Thank you. And Mr. Clerk, the roll call, please.
Your Worship, Councillor Noyes is absent this evening and sends her regrets. All other members of council are present.
Thank you very much. There is no addendum this evening. A couple of brief announcements. The first is that the Royal Canadian Legion begins its annual Poppy campaign this week, and starting on Friday, October the 25th, it's appropriate to wear a poppy in remembrance of those who sacrificed lives or limbs during Canada's conflicts during the last century and more recently. So please take the opportunity to do that as a recognition of our remembrance of those who made sacrifices for us. And second of all, before our next regular council meeting, there will be a festivity called Halloween. And so All Hallows Eve takes place next week. And since there will be little goblins and other scary features out looking for treats, avoid tricks by ensuring that you keep an eye out for them. And we wish everyone a safe Halloween. That takes us then to declarations of pecuniary interest. And there being none, just some upcoming public meetings. We've got the budget meetings continuing. November the 25th is the capital budget and forecast. December 4th is the water and wastewater operating budget and user fee analysis. January 29th, 2025 is the Fort Erie Public Library assessment analysis and general levy operating budget. And February 5th, we'll have a further meeting if it's necessary. Those budget meetings will be followed by bylaws relative to the preliminary capital budget, which is going to be dealt with on December the 2nd. December the 16th, we'll deal with the rates and user fees, and the general levy budget and general capital budget will be dealt with if all things proceed as planned on February the 24th, 2025. We also have a public meeting coming up with respect to 2549 Stevensville Road. That is a proposed zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision, and that will be dealt with here in the council chambers on Monday, November the 4th, 2024 at 6 p.m. The information report from staff, which will be provided to council, is available for the public on the internet on Wednesday, October the 30th, 2024 at 5 p.m. That takes us to the Regional Councillor's report. Good evening, Regional Councillor Encina.
Good evening, Mayor Redekop, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. Glad to be here.
We're glad to have you here.
The provincial government has now funded the addition of 13 new full-time positions for long-term care staffing. These new positions will bring Niagara's long-term care facilities closer to offering a 4 hours of care for each resident, a condition that has been strived for a while. There is also an allotment of an additional $2,543 to each long-term care bed to try to relieve financial pressures while addressing some of the key priorities there. The region has entered into an agreement with Canadian Red Cross to provide emergency social services from January 1st, 2025 to December 2027. It's been established as part of the emergency response plan that the region is required to have. The CRC will coordinate essential services with individuals who must be evacuated during an emergency and provide emergency feeding, lodging, clothing, and other services that are required. They will work hand in hand with local municipalities during times of emergency. As most are aware, the capital budget was brought forward to the region budget committee of the whole after much discussion. Before and during the meeting, the capital budget was passed. It now has not passed the bylaw stage as of yet. The general tax levy will probably see an increase of 2.5% for capital projects. Through resource allocation screening processes, there are 168 projects that will be initiated this budget cycle in the region. Some of the capital projects in Fort Erie are the rehabilitation of Stevensville Road from Eagle Street to Bowen Road, along with the bridge on Stevensville Road. Bowen Road from the Queen Elizabeth to Ridgemount will be refurbished. Upgrades to the sewer pumping stations in the town to deal with some anticipated growth. The Stevensville Douglastown Lagoon will also see major upgrades this coming year. The Bridge Street landfill site is getting a new facelift. It's probably finished or almost finished by now. Of note, what I do want to let council know, a communication was sent out last week to regional councillors advising that there were 2 spills of sewage in the region. The first spill occurred in Port Weller at the wastewater treatment plant. It was a minor spill that was contained at the treatment plant property. The second was a spill that happened on September 4th here in Fort Erie at the Lakeshore Road sewer pumping station. This station pumps sewage to the Anger Avenue waste treatment plant. Due to the failing infrastructure, both pumps failed, engaging the backup pump, which in then pumped wastewater directly into the Niagara River. The spill went on for an estimated 52 minutes before staff could rectify the problem with a temporary fix. And it was estimated that 5.3 cubic meters of waste went into the river. Thus, it wasn't a whole lot, but it was points to the condition of our infrastructure. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Encinet. Are there any questions of the regional councillor by members of council? Well, thank you very much, regional councillor. That then takes us to a rather delightful portion of this evening's meeting, and that is our opportunity to recognize the contributions to our community over 20 years by an individual. In this particular case, the individual is Charlene Nye, whom I'm sure most people in Fort Erie know either personally or by reputation. Good reputation, by the way. Charlene was appointed initially to the Playground Ad Hoc Committee on August the 16th, 2004. That committee was established to review the needs of playgrounds throughout the town. Same date, she was also appointed to the Point Abano Lighthouse Advisory Committee, which had been established in 2003. And on December the 4th, 2006, she was appointed to the Museum and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee, on which she has served to the present. Charlene was also a member of the Point Abano Legislation Preservation Society with individuals in town from Canada and the United States prior to the town's advisory committee. These were local citizens interested in the lighthouse who were very instrumental in assisting the town with the designation of the lighthouse as a national heritage site. Charlene spoke many times at council between 2005 and 2013 on the Point Abano Lighthouse, providing the history, significance of a heritage designation, the timing of purchasing the lighthouse, tour updates, access agreement, lighthouse keeper's dwelling, and commending the town on its review of the boards and committees and the consideration of merging various committees into one of similar interests. When Charlene and her family moved to Stevensville in 1968, she became a member of St. John's Anglican, I guess that's Ridgemount Anglican Church, for which she has been a very active member over the years, including assisting in the Provincial Doors Open initiative. Charlene's, now this is personal, Charlene's mother taught her to be a very active community member, and that really is highlighted by the fact that she has felt the need and the imperative to willingly give back to the community which has supported her over the years, her and her family. And so we're very pleased that Charlene took her mother's advice on that. So I will ask Charlene to come up to the podium. I'm going to present you with a few things, and then I understand the museum board also has something they'd like to present to you.
Something to hang on to.
And of course, you can say something to us. Congratulations, and thank you so
very
very, very much.
Thank you
So
very
this is a little bit of swag. And a Tom pin. I don't know if you have one of those. but
No,
it's-
I don't.
It's the one that I always wear.
I
And-
know, I've seen that one before.
Yes, and this is a
Oh,
certificate.
my.
This is the Municipal Council of the Town of Fort Erie on behalf of the residents hereby appreciates and recognizes Charlene A. Nye for her contribution and participation with the Ad hoc Playground Committee, Point Avenue Lighthouse Advisory Committee, and Museum and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee between 2004 and 2024. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you
So
very much.
let's get a photo here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I understand that Mary McClellan also has a little something for you.
Oh, my goodness.
And then if you would like, you may speak to council. You don't have to, but you may if you wish to.
Okay,
And,
I will say something little because I didn't write it down, but
perfect, okay.
thank you.
Over to you, Mary.
Thank you.
Charlene, this is from your colleagues on the Museum and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee with our heartfelt appreciation and admiration
Thank
for
you.
everything you've done over the past
Thank
20
you.
years. And perhaps I can just pass this off to
My
Jim and-
husband.
and- Yeah, lovely. There we go. Here, take it. Thank you very, very much.
Gosh, was, it was all fun. When I first, the playgrounds was my first sort of interest in who did what. And my kids were little. And they had upgraded or else improved one of the parks. And so the kids were, my son was 10, I think. The youngest was 10. So that made the other two and 12 and almost 13. But they wanted to check out this new park. And of course, so we drove to the park and parked on the street. I think it was Ferndale, but I'm not sure. You parked on the street and crossed the road to go to the park. And first thing kids are going to do when you get them out of the car is run, right? And so, of course, it happened. And I could see it as a safety thing. And I asked that that be looked after. So I think there's walkways now to all the parks. And that kind of led to an interest. Along the way, there were a couple of things that caught my eye. It was houses, because I always liked old houses. And there was an opportunity to learn more about it on the Heritage Committee, especially under the leadership of Dave, and I've just lost his name. Dave, Mary. Red Shaw, yeah, who took us on walks in Fort Erie areas. And when the weather was good. And as we walked along, there would be half a dozen of us. I recognized Mary and oh gosh, I forgot your names already. I should have. Well, Mary was probably started a long time as me. But anyway, the walking on the park, that was the Heritage Committee with David. Hayworth. Dave Hayworth took us on walks in the older areas, and he'd point out some of the architectural features of some of these houses. So that was a really good way to get to know how the town was, how laid out, and how familiar staff has to be with the layout of the town. And things just grew from there, really. There was a bit of a discussion coming up about this lighthouse, and there seemed to be a lot of antagonism among some people, and it was one of those. It looked like it was going to be one of those Canada-U.S. problems, because it was right on the beach and it was very close to a very deluxe holiday area for our American friends. But that turned out not to be so, because the mayor organized a planning committee, and we had Americans on it. And some we all worked well together. And in fact, we even had a native Canadian on it for a while. And we all worked together. And we found that the neighbors, everybody, you hear, kids talking about it, but we all got along and got to see access to the lighthouse and make it, declared it a federal building, federal heritage site, so money to help improve it and restore it, and advertising for tours. We did tours for, I'm not sure when we started tours, but shortly after it was finished anyway. And it was always a fun thing, but really sharing the story of Fort Erie. So I thank you very much, because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it tremendously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that the part that we played, some of my colleagues are in here. We worked well together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I should mention, Charlene, that you and your family are welcome to stay for the balance of the meeting. You're welcome to stay if you wish, but you don't have to stay.
Well, we brought as many people as we could, including our 4-day-old great-grandchild.
Perfect. Wow.
So we think we're going to get home.
Yeah,
And
fair enough.
we'll have supper, and baby will have supper.
Great.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we go to the consent agenda, are there any items that anyone wishes removed from the consent agenda? If not, then we'll wait until the baby has left. You're staying? Okay, Councillor Christensen, I understand that you have the resolution for the items in the consent agenda.
Yes, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDermott, that Council approves the consent agenda as recommended.
Are there any questions or comments with respect to any of the items in the consent agenda? There being none, all those in favor of the resolutions? That is carried. That then takes us to, there are no reports, so that takes us to new business and inquiries. And the first resolution relates to the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference And Councillor Flagg, you have that resolution.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that in accordance with the requirements of expense allowance policy bylaw 142-06 as amended, Councillor authorizes Mayor Wayne H. Redekop, Councillor George McDermott, and Councillor Joan Christensen to attend the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Roma Conference on January 19 to 21, 2025 at the Sheridan Centre Hotel in Toronto.
Any questions or comments? Councillor Lewis?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to make a couple of comments. One in particular that I'm glad to see that we're sending representatives to Roma. I think it's a very effective time and almost I'd go so far as to say in many ways probably a better opportunity for us to get in front of ministers than at AMO. So happy to see names going forward.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Dubanow?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. But I just want to kind of expand on what Councillor Lewis said. I think it's a great idea. I think we have a really good team here at Council. I think we're all very good at what we do. I think we're all very, pro Fort Erie and kind of Fort Erie boosters everywhere we go. So I think it's only natural that we do the best we can to not just go to AMO, but to go to other conferences like Roma, small urban municipalities, and others to get our message out and to convey the needs of our municipality and ensure that we get buy-in and conversation with ministers. Just one thing I wanted to raise, I thought we had had some discussions previously about changing our procedural bylaw with respect to, instead of councillors being authorized, for the AMO conference and then having approval for anything else. I thought there was some discussion about switching it so that we're authorized to attend one conference without requiring authorization. And I'm just wondering if there was any comment from either the clerk or the CAO, if any of that had come forward. I thought we were going to change that.
I'm going to go with the clerk.
Through you, Your Worship.
And if he doesn't give the right answer, we'll go to the CAO.
We'll see how I do. We provided a memo, I believe, it was either late last year or early this year, probably around this time when we were approving the councillors to go to I think it was Roma last year, and we just explained that approval was required in the policy. We never did receive direction from council to make those changes to the policy. We just had provided that information, so if you were looking to provide direction, this might be a good opportunity.
So Councillor Dubanow, if staff needs a resolution with respect to this to provide direction, then maybe we could amend this particular resolution, since it's in line with what we've all been talking about and with what I think we're hoping to be able to accomplish. So if you wanted to amend this particular resolution, I would entertain that.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Your Worship. I would like to move that we give direction to staff to make those changes.
Okay, so the change would be to provide, to amend the policy to provide that councillors may attend one conference per year without the need for council approval.
Yeah, I think I have something right here, Your Worship, that council directs staff to prepare the necessary amendments to council expense policy bylaw 14206 to permit each member of council to attend one conference and/or event requiring overnight stay, and that any conference to AMO specific or any reference to AMO specifically be removed to allow the member of council to decide which conference they feel best meets their needs.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Christensen? Okay, so that's on the floor, and then the only concern I would have is that we all decide we want to go to Roma next year. Okay. So everybody except you decides to go to Roma. I think we'd have to bear that in mind. Clerk, do you have any suggestions on that? Should we put cap on a number of councillors that would attend any one conference? Or do
Through
you
Your
want
Worship,
to-
that would be up to council if that's the direction you wanted to include. I'm blanking on suggested wording for that at the moment, but
Okay, so perhaps when this comes back to us, you can provide some background on that. Any other questions or comments to the amendment? If not, I'm going to call the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment to change the policy to permit councillors to attend one meeting without council approval? Opposed? Indifferent? Oh, your hand was up? Okay. So you'll have to, you have to try harder. Okay. Okay, so that amendment carries. That means that the resolution as amended is on the floor. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Okay. For some reason, the agenda has us going to closed session right now, and I'm going to hold that down so that we can deal with a couple of motions that we have. Pardon? Oh, you have, sorry, before we leave new business, yes.
Yeah, thank
Any
you,
other
Worship.
New business or inquiries?
Yes, thank you, Worship, if I may. I just wanted to mention, for the sake of council's benefit as well as staff, I heard from a resident who lived on Concession Road this week regarding our traffic calming plan that we recently approved. And she was concerned because she thought that we weren't proceeding with it based on the number of feedbacks and response that we received to it, and I explained to her that we approved them all based on the situation and our own expertise and knowledge of the area, and she was thrilled. But she, in the amount of time between speaking with her and hearing that, she had actually went through the neighborhood and collected a number of signatures from individuals who were favorable to this. She has over 20 residents just along Concession itself. So I just wanted to mention that. I think it's a good program. I think Concession is a very important road that we address first. It was one of the main motivations why I ran for council in 2018, living in Garrison Village, was just seeing the traffic whip up and down that street, and children. So it was actually Angela Johnston was the resident who did this. I want to commend her. I want to thank her. I think it's great civic engagement and action to go forward and, you know, work with your community and your neighbors to have your voice heard among your elected representatives. And I'll flip that over to staff, because maybe we can just add that to the file to say we have some additional interest and some additional signatures. But I just wanted to raise that. I wanted to thank Angela for that, because when I first heard from her, I thought the petition was concerned that they weren't happy about the plan and they wanted to stop it. And she actually thought it wasn't moving forward, and they were all delighted to hear that this is moving forward. So I think we're moving in a good direction, and I just wanted to share that with council. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dubanow. So are there any other inquiries or items of new business that anyone wishes to raise? So rather than going to closed session right now, we have a number of people in the gallery here who I'm sure are waiting for some of the motions that are on the agenda. So I'm going to hold down the closed session until after we deal with motions. And there are two on the agenda, the first of which is Councillor Dubanow's motion.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott. The council directs staff to prepare a report on the implementation and budgetary impacts of a rodent control rebate program for property owners in the town of Fort Erie, as outlined in the memo presented to council on September 18th, 2023. And may I briefly speak to that, Your Worship?
Of course.
Thank you. So I had a resident raise this issue with me, I want to say about a month ago, just regarding some kind of, you know, dare I say it, but just, you know, kind of catching some rats on some trail cams and some cameras he had in his yard. And he had mentioned he had mentioned, you know, without going into detail, you know, just the costs that were involved and the burden of controlling this. And the resident had raised that, you know, other municipalities, I believe St. Catharines does it, Niagara Falls, I believe Thorold may be embarking on this as well very recently, just to provide a small rebate to residents to help assist with this. And the reason I want to bring it forward is the amount we're talking about, the amount that was listed in the memo to council, it was a small rebate. I think it was $200 to a resident, which would cover a portion of you know, the control necessary, the baiting and the cleanup and everything else. But you know, the small expense that the municipality would you know, lay out to assist residents with this, it's a benefit to the entire community, because you know, no one wants those little critters running around. The region has to run around. The public health sends out letters. It's something that is taken very seriously. And, with other municipalities doing it, I think it's time that we look at it, see what the budgetary impact is, and maybe have a more fulsome discussion. So that's why I've brought this forward as a motion tonight, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Dubanow. Does anyone else wish to speak to the resolution, the motion? If not, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And opposed, that is carried. At this time, I'd like to ask Councillor Flagg to take over the chair so that I can speak on a motion.
I will certainly do so, Your Worship, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I move, seconded by Councillor Lewis, that whereas the Douglas Memorial Hospital was built primarily with funds left by the estate of William Douglas on his death in 1929, and whereas the Douglas Memorial Hospital, the hospital, opened for operation in 1931, and whereas the hospital operated in the black during all of its years of operation between 1931 and 1998 as a full-service hospital under the management and guidance of its own Board of Trustees, and whereas the Health Services Restructuring Commission, the HSRC, recommended in 1998 that Douglas Memorial continue operation as a hospital within the new Niagara Health System, NHS, with acute and chronic care beds, emergency and ambulatory services, and a range of diagnostics. And whereas, despite the creation of a standing committee of the NHS Board for Fort Erie, pursuant to recommendation of the HSRC, to assure local input into board decision-making, and that no decision to eliminate any inpatient or emergency services would be made unless approved by such standing committee, the NHS embarked on a systematic reduction or elimination of various services at the hospital until the adoption by the NHS of its Hospital Improvement Plan, the HIP, in 2008. And whereas pursuant to the HIP, the NHS eliminated emergency and all other healthcare services at the hospital in 2009, with the exception of a 24-hour urgent care center, the UCC, chronic care beds, palliative care beds, and some diagnostics, without the approval of the hospital standing committee. And whereas in July 2023, Niagara Health, NH, as it is now designated, reduced the hours of operation of the hospital UCC to 12 hours, although the public only has access to the UCC from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. And whereas NH has recently adopted a 3-hospital model for the future of hospital services in Niagara that intends to completely close the hospital, resulting in no urgent, chronic, or palliative or diagnostic services in Fort Erie once the new South Niagara Hospital is opened in or about 2028. And whereas the most recent population data available indicates that Fort Erie's current population is 36,200, far greater than projected during deliberations with respect to Niagara Region's new official plan adopted in July 2022. And whereas the Niagara Region's population is growing at a rate far greater than anticipated by the province or NH, particularly when projections were being made for the hospital and needs of South Niagara when planning for the new South Niagara Hospital. And whereas there are over 7,000 Fort Erie residents unattached to a primary care physician, necessitating a primary care safety net, such as a UCC or alternative, to avoid first point of health care contact at local emergency departments. And whereas the UCC at Douglas Memorial forms that primary health care safety net in the absence of sufficient primary care physicians or service providers in Fort Erie, excuse me. Whereas the removal of UCC services, chronic care beds, palliative care beds, and diagnostics from the hospital will result in an unreasonable and unnecessary hardship for current and future residents of Fort Erie, and will foreclose the use of the hospital as a safety valve for NH patients anywhere in Niagara in the event the new South Niagara Hospital is unable to meet the demands that the increasing population of Niagara will place on it. And whereas a prudent approach to managing the hospital and healthcare needs of Niagara, particularly South Niagara and Fort Erie, would recognize the value of retaining a fully operational UCC with diagnostics and clinics, as well as chronic care and palliative care beds at the hospital. And whereas there is no indication that NH has any intention of changing course on its 3-hospital model for Niagara, despite requests by the town of Fort Erie to continue the services available at the hospital. And whereas the residents of Fort Erie need and deserve equitable primary health care services, including 24-hour urgent care and associated services, now therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Town of Fort Erie requests that the Minister of Health commit to funding all necessary services at the new South Niagara Hospital without the removal or reallocation of operational funding from the Douglas Memorial for the UCC and other current health services. And further, that the Council for the Town of Fort Erie requests that the Minister of Health direct any and all funding from the Province of Ontario for the operation of the UCC, primary care, chronic care beds, and palliative care beds, and all diagnostic and associated services at Douglas Memorial remain in Fort Erie for use by Niagara Health as part of a revised hospital model for Niagara, or an alternative model operated by a qualified designated healthcare services entity working in collaboration with the town of Fort Erie should NH close Douglas Memorial as a hospital site, either before or following the completion and opening of the new South Niagara Hospital. And further, that the Mayor and the town of Fort Erie staff enter into discussions with the Minister of Health and Niagara Health and such other healthcare providers as deemed appropriate to ensure the continued operation of primary care and other current services at Douglas Memorial with or without the involvement of NH. And further, that the Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Doug Ford, be requested to support this initiative. And further, that a copy of this resolution be provided to the Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Doug Ford, the Ontario Minister of Health, Sylvia Jones, the Prime Minister of Canada, the Honourable Justin Trudeau, the Federal Minister of Health, Mark Holland, the 4 MPPs and MPs who represent Niagara, the Niagara Region, and the other 11 local area municipalities in Niagara for support. And I just have a little bit more to say, if I might.
That doesn't surprise me, and you may.
So the preamble really outlines the argument for why hospital services, particularly the urgent care center, the chronic care beds, and the palliative care and diagnostics should continue in Fort Erie. But I do want to say that I note that today the provincial government announced that they were appointing Jane Philpott to head a new committee that the province is hoping will assist them to resolve their primary health care needs in Ontario. And that may be the case, and that may be an effort by the provincial government to meet the growing outcry from across Ontario, mostly in rural Ontario, about the lack of primary health services available to many residents in rural Ontario, but other parts of Ontario as well. I would say that I found Dr. Philpott's comments about the situation in Ontario and her view of the importance of primary care kind of encapsulated in her comment that Ontario can build a health system where the guarantee of access to a primary care team is as automatic as the assurance that every child will be assigned to a public school in their neighborhood. That really says it all, and that really says what those who have provided reports, commissions, investigators over the past 30 years across the country have been saying. Primary care is the essential element in healthcare for all Canadians. If you fix the primary care needs, the community care needs, and the long-term care needs, you take pressure off of the hospitals, and then the hospitals can provide that secondary and tertiary and quaternary care if necessary. So I'm hopeful that our resolution will strike some resonance. Certainly we will continue our battles with Niagara Health and take our case, continue to take our case to the Minister of Health and the Premier, and hopefully Council will support this, and we will find some comfort in Dr. Philpott's appointment. And certainly I know that we should be trying to meet with her as well to provide some of the information that we can about the situation and how it's evolved in Fort Erie and what the needs of our community are vis-a-vis all the other communities in Ontario. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Your Worship. Everyone on the council appreciate your leadership in this. Are there other comments? Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Your Worship, for this resolution. I think it's a very well-written and well-thought-out resolution. I think it encapsulates exactly how we feel on council and in our community as a whole on the need for these services to be retained. As I've said before, I saw with my own eyes the importance of having 24/7 urgent care in the community. The mayor knows the story, other members of council do, but maybe others haven't heard it about my kidney stone incident in February of 2023 at 1 a.m. in the morning with 2 children at home who needed to go to school the next morning, and crazy fog on the QEW trying to get there and having to take the whole family up just to get a shot of morphine so I could pass that nasty stone that just ruined 48 hours of my life. But that was really my eye-opener, and I saw firsthand, you hear the stories and you hear the comments and you kind of think, oh, well, but that was where it hit home to me and where I realized that what I experienced are what so many others in the community have experienced as well. I want to thank the mayor, though, for 2 particular points in here that I think go to the kind of the heart of the issue. Is, I don't want to go too much into the Niagara Health situation. I mean, I have my own opinions on some of the recent comments. I know other members of council do as well. But I also know that we have a very dedicated team of healthcare professionals in this community who care about this community and want to serve this community. And when I look here about, guaranteeing funding for the operation of that hospital, irrespective of what Niagara Health decides to do. I look at the community of Dunnville, and they have a really nice, wonderful hospital there, Haldeman War Memorial Hospital. My son actually sees a pediatrician there, Dr. Mackin, who used to be in Fort Erie and moved there because of how well run that hospital is. And you look at Dunnville, Haldeman County itself has about 40,000 people across the entire county. Maybe Dunnville has, 10, 15,000 just off the top of my head, and there's some other surrounding communities that are roughly the same size. They're able to run a hospital in that community. We're twice the size of Dunnville. We have the leadership on this council that wants to do it. We have doctors in this community. I really think that, going to the motion we had earlier about attending other conferences, making connections with ministers, having discussions and advocating for our community, I think, and I'm speaking for myself individually here, but if we're at an impasse with Niagara Health, I think we need to have discussions directly with the provincial government now. And I think we need to start saying, I didn't do that for the round of applause, but I think we need to advocate for our community directly to Queen's Park. I think we need to set out a business case. I think we need to say these are the needs of our community. This is what our community has to offer. This is how we can do it. And if Niagara Health wants to proceed another way, that's fine. I'm of the opinion we don't necessarily need them at this point. I think we can do it better ourselves. And so that's why I think this motion hits to the crux of the issue, and Your Worship, I am so glad to see that in there. Because if we're at an impasse, that does not stop us. We have other avenues, we have other means at our disposal to move forward, and so be it, we're going to continue doing that. So to Councillor McDermott and Councillor Christensen heading up to Roma, I think you know how this councillor feels. I think you know how the rest of this council feels and how this community feels. And when you have an opportunity to corner Minister Jones, which I'm sure you will, being a smaller conference, I hope these are the things you convey. Because I know that we have the medical professionals in this community. It's just a matter of the business case, and it's just a matter of making the sale. So that's my position. Mr. Chair, I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you very much, Your Worship, for bringing this forward. I don't speak very often about this. I let Councillor McDermott and Councillor Christensen being so engaged in healthcare and Mr. Chair, His Worship being so long. But there are times where I speak up when I feel it's important on this, and this was one situation where I felt it was right now. So thank you very much for your indulgence, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor, anyone else? Councillor Christensen.
Thank you, Your Worship, for the same reasons, and thank you, Councillor Dubanow. At the heart of this motion and at the heart of what we're facing is accountability. Accountability to my home, to my community, to my constituents, to my friends, and to the constituents of everyone in this room. We have not had accountability as documented so well in the mayor's motion. The decisions that have been made do not reflect accountability to the residents of Fort Erie. I don't know what they reflect, and I really don't care, but I absolutely agree with Councillor Dubanow's encapsulation of the situation. It is one of the reasons that I wanted to go to the Roma conference, because I think there's also an opportunity to speak to my colleagues in rural communities who are facing some of the same issues where large health systems, hospital systems, let's be blunt, large hospital systems who attract, because of the high need, the high competence, the high cost, who attract so many dollars from the healthcare system, where in fact, as the mayor said, 100% of the residents in this country require primary health care with the associated diagnostic imaging and other ancillary services, palliative care, certain other programs and services that can be done in a community setting and in a clinic setting. I'm definitely supporting this motion. It goes to the heart of healthcare in this community, and I think the mayor has done an absolutely fabulous job in putting it together. Yes.
Hear, hear.
I think sometimes applause is required. Thank you.
Yeah, normally we don't clap, but I'm not going to stop them tonight, am I? So we're just going to barry bar the door. Thank you, Councillor Christensen and Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. Clapping good, booing bad. I just want to jump in here rather briefly and mention this has been an over 30-year battle. Although a long-winded motion, I think incredibly speaks to the importance of the issue and paints the story of, very briefly, even though rather long, how we got to where we are today. I'm not going to join the 40-plus club tonight, although I could, and compare kidney stone stories. But I too have had good care at Douglas Memorial Urgent Care, and the issue that keeps coming back to me is this is still the #1 issue for our residents in my second term, almost 2 decades later. And I just want to applaud the mayor for the work that's gone into this motion, council for the work that's been done leading up until now, staff for the work that's been done, although rather behind the scenes. It really has been like ducks moving through a pond where you may not see the feet moving, but there has been a lot of very fast moving parts to this policy file, and a rather difficult one to sometimes communicate to the community when you're trying to work towards the objective. And I also just want to say that at some point I do want to continue the conversation about the $3 million that we've put in hold for the Douglas Memorial site. I think it was the right agreement at the right time for the right reasons, but as I mentioned before, this is a partner who has changed the goalpost and where we're going. That was at a time when there was I believe a 3-hospital system with 2 urgent care centers, one being in Fort Erie, and that is not the case right now. So I know we've got lots of runway to have that conversation, but very happy to support the motion, and thank you, Your Worship, for moving it forward.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Councillor McDermott.
Well, thank you. I'm not going to belabor the point tonight, but the fact of the matter is, I know I've been doing this since 2011, and it never grows old. It's the same thing all of the time. The players change, the boards change, the ministers change. But what doesn't change is the fact that they haven't got the message that a community that grows such as at the lengths that we are, and similar to Niagara Falls, we're all growing so quickly, and they're not accounting for any of that when they make these crazy-ass decisions. To be honest with you, I just don't get it. They know what these problems are. They've known it for years. They've done nothing to solve it, and our healthcare just gets degraded and degraded and degraded, and I say shame on them for sure. I think it's generated by the NHS and supported by the government. And it's funny that every 4 years, this is something that politicians, local politicians who really isn't their job to provide healthcare, have to fight for it every 4 years. So when you run for council, you better be prepared to make that battle every 4 years, because governments change like we change our underwear. So, a lot of things that are never taken into account here is the fact that, if we had an emergency here, they already have patient health care in the hallways now. They will have when they don't have urgent care centers in the new emergency place. Nothing's going to change here. Nothing. Not the wait times, nothing. Because this is the way they do it. You have to put the government should get over this fact. Do not put a price tag on people's health in this country, period. The fact of the matter is, one thing people would do, if they had consistent, sustainable health care in their communities, they would be happy to pay for that in their taxes. But why do we have to be disturbed every 4 years? What would happen if we had a plant that blew up here? We already have wait times around 6 or 7 hours in the emergency rooms on offloading. But what happens then? There's very little they could do. So this isolating us and us having to play peekaboo with the NHS every 4 years is getting a little bit ridiculous, and we're all fed up with it. I don't know if you can tell, but I think every one of us are fed up. And, we get blamed for a lot of things. Belittling people or, hurting somebody's feelings. But don't tell me for 1 second that what we're not talking about here is not trying to belittle people. It's trying to come to grips with the fact that a lot of people at the NHS are being paid a hell of a lot of money to make these decisions. And you think that with all that money that's being paid out there, some of the brain work has gone south on them, because if they can't figure this mess out, which is not really a mess, this is very low-cost health care. It really is. So, we're going to do everything we can, just like you're doing right now, by being here, being on the street, motivating people to help, putting up signs. So we're all doing our part, and I think if we continue doing that, I think we'll be in much better shape in the future. So thank you, Your Worship, for this motion.
Thank you, Councillor McDermott. No one will ever question your passion. Councillor Lewis, I think you want to speak once more.
Say at the end of this, I think we should do a recorded vote. I know we're down one councillor, and I'm pretty sure I know where her vote would be, but I think due to the importance of this matter and to show it's unanimous, predicting the future, obviously, and I agree with some of what Councillor McDermott says, but we're going to have to talk about a few of your comments after.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Clerk, if you would, please.
Councillor Christensen?
Support.
Councillor Dubanow,
Yes.
Councillor Flagg,
Yes.
Councillor Lewis,
Yes?
Councillor McDermott, Mayor Redekop. That carries.
Thank you for allowing me the privilege to chair that, Your Worship. And back to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Flagg. You're the acting mayor, so that's, you did an excellent job. And I just want to say, you know, we have elections every 4 years, Councillor McDermott. I do trust that you're changing your underwear more than every 4 years. Okay. All right, you opened the door, Councillor McDermott. I'm sorry, I just couldn't resist. That takes us then to closed session, I think. Yeah, we're going to go back to closed session. And Councillor McDermott, you have the resolution for closed session.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Christensen. The council does now go into closed session at 6:56 p.m. to consider the following: 14.1, closed meeting minutes, October 7th. 14.2, Community Gaming Development Corporation appointment, deferred from September 23rd, 2024 council meeting and the October 7th, 2024 council and committee meeting pursuant to Section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. 14.3, Senior Citizen Advisory Committee appointment pursuant to Section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. 14.4, Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee appointing pursuant to Section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. 14.5 214 Windmill Point Road South, report PDS 67/2024, pursuant to Section 239(2)E of the Municipal Act 2001, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or board.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is unanimous, so we're going into closed session. We're back in the council chambers, and Councillor Lewis, you have the resolution for us to rise and reconvene from closed session.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott. The council does now rise and reconvene from closed session at 7:23 p.m. with report. The council approves the closed session minutes of October the 7th, 2024, and that, 14.1, that council approves the closed session minutes of October the 7th, 2024. 14.2, the council appoints Alton Vasallo to the Community Gaming Development Corporation for the term ending November the 14th, 2026, or until their successor is appointed. And that 14.3, that council appoints Vargasay, Archande Jose, and Anne Jans to the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee for the term ending November the 14th, 2024, or until their successor is appointed. And 14.4, that council appoints Riley Arts, Nathania Bozic, William Connor, Alexis Isaac, Alessia Poulin, Grace Wang, and Erica Zhao to the Mayor's Youth Advisory for the term ending November the 14th, 2026, or until their successors are appointed. And that 14.5, that council authorize the staff to proceed as directed in closed session, and apologies if I mispronounced any of the names.
Okay, are there any questions or comments with respect to the resolutions? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Are there any notices of motion? If not, then we'll proceed with the bylaws, consideration of bylaws. Are there any items that anyone wishes removed from the package? Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to remove 102, 107, 108, 109, and 110.
Okay, are there any others?
I was wondering,
Lewis?
call a recorded vote for 18-102, which is the short-term rental.
Okay, so that's not in, that's been taken out of the package, so
Okay.
we'll deal with that. Councillor McDermott. So the bylaw package, 102, 107, 8, 9, and 10. The heritage bylaws. We'll deal with them separately. I presume we'll deal with the heritage bylaws all at once? Okay.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Christensen, that the bylaw package containing 103-2024, 104-2024, 105-2024, 106-2024.
So excuse me, Councillor McDermott, when you're doing first and second reading, we typically read the whole,
Oh, I'm sorry, Your Worship.
read what the bylaw's about.
Okay, let me just mark this so I don't mess it up, okay?
Sure.
Just 1 second. Once again, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Christensen, that the bylaw package containing 103-2024 to authorize the entry into a development agreement with Niagara Pines Developments, Place via 92 Adelaide Street, 104-2024 to accept and declare lands as public highway, Nye Road and Burley Road, Nye Road, Joshua Mackenzie, 105-2024 to accept and declare land as public highway, Hazel and Prospect Point Road, North 3624 Hazel Street, SR Niagara Investments, including Salvatore and Rita Visca. 106-2024 to accept and declare lands as public highway, Rebstock Road and 3967 Rebstock Road, Amanda and Thomas Hamilton. 112-2024 to enact an amendment to the official plan adopted by bylaw 15006 for the Town of Fort Erie Planning Department, Amendment 85, 576 Ridge Road North, Fort Erie, 2846300, Ontario, Inc., Bryce Ivanchuk, owner, given person, second reading.
All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. So that bylaw package as amended is on the floor for any questions or comments. If there are none, then Councillor Lewis, you have third and final reading for the amended bylaw package.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that bylaws 102-202.
No, not 102.
What were the ones removed? Can I get those again?
Yeah, so 102, 107, 08, 09, and 10 have been removed.
So this would be,
So you've got 103, 2024 to 106, 2024, and 111 and 112.
perfect. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that bylaws 103 through 106, 111 through 112, inclusive, are given third and final reading, be signed by the mayor and the clerk and the corporate seal. Is that correct?
That's correct, 103 to 106, 111, and 112.
Perfect.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. So we'll go back to, we'll deal with 102 separately, and then we'll deal with 107 to 110 separately together. So 102, Councillor McDermott?
Do I have to do the moving and the seconding all over again? Okay.
Same, yeah, you're the mover, yep.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Christensen at 103-2020,
No,
oh, I'm sorry,
102.
102-2024 to amend business licensing bylaw 21705 was amended, short-term rentals.
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. That bylaw is on the floor for questions or comments. Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. It struck me as we were going through our budgeting process that we often make budgets and set caps and limits that we come back and we revisit when necessary. And I felt that it was prudent to bring it up to council this evening that moving forward without any kind of a limit or a cap on short-term rentals just doesn't make sense to me. It still doesn't, and it has not. So to prevent future councils from trying to get horses back in the corrals, so to speak, or not to be able to adjust based on the landscape of the day, I would like to move an amendment that a cap be installed on short-term rentals exclusive of owner-occupied rentals of 275 units.
Exclusive of owner.
Of owner-occupied. And if I may speak to it, Your Worship.
We have to have a seconder. Councillor Dubanow, thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe that this will assist with any issues that we may have. If there are no issues, we can come back, revisit it, adjust it as necessary. Owner-occupied, we don't have any issues with generally. I don't see that as being problematic. We are in a position right now where this will satisfy the numbers that are currently needed, and it provides a laneway for us to remain within, and if necessary, like we do with budgets, we can revisit that, we can amend it, we can do what we want, but we are not opening up the floodgates, so to speak, without any kind of ability to have a safety net installed. Thank you.
Anyone else to the amendment? So, okay, then I'm going to call the question on the amendment. That is to insert a provision for a cap of 275 exclusive of owner-occupied units.
That's correct.
And can we have a recorded vote on that, clerk?
To the amendment, Councillor Christensen,
No.
Councillor Dubanow,
No.
Councillor Flagg,
Yes.
Councillor Lewis,
No.
Councillor McDermott,
No?
Mayor,
Yes.
and that is defeated.
Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Flagg, you still have the floor.
Nothing further, Your Worship.
Anyone else? If there is nothing further, Councillor Lewis, you asked for a recorded vote on this.
I believe at the last meeting,
So
we,
we'll do
both
that when we
agreed.
we'll do that when we get to third and final reading.
not a problem.
Okay, and so third and final reading, that is you.
That's Back to the Future. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that bylaw 102 inclusive, are given third and final reading, be signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal affixed.
Questions or comments? Councillor Lewis, you've asked for a recorded vote, and there seems to be no further comments, so clerk?
Councillor Christensen,
Yes.
Councillor Dubanow,
Yes.
Councillor Flagg,
Yes.
Councillor Lewis,
Yes.
Councillor McDermott,
Yes.
Mayor Redekop.
Yes.
That carries.
Okay, so then that takes us back to bylaws 107 to 10, which are the designation bylaws. Councillor McDermott, I believe you can deal with all of those at once. So if you would put those on the floor.
Councillor Christensen, that 107-2024 to designate 168 High Street as being of cultural value, cultural heritage value or interest. 108-2024 to designate 400 Holloway Bay Road South as being of cultural heritage value or interest. 109-2024 to designate 45 Princess as being part of cultural heritage value or interest. 110-2024 to designate 487 Niagara Boulevard as being of cultural heritage value or interest.
Are given first and second reading. All those in favor of putting these bylaws on the floor? So they're on the floor. Are there any questions or comments with respect to any of them? Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. And this kind of encapsulates all four. I'm just wondering, since these reports were sent out, whether we've had any further dialogue with any of the owners of these properties.
Ms. Dewaria.
Your Worship, through you to the councillor, we have received a response for 168 High Street. The owners are not in agreement for the designation. For the remaining three, we have been trying to get in touch with them, but we have not received any response from them.
Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. And further, can you, I know that there is a time limit or a requirement for us to deal with this. Can you tell me where we are in that process at this point?
Ms. Dewaria.
Your Worship, through you to the councillor, we are still within our time frame. We would have till next, end of November. So we would have 2 more council meetings between now and then.
Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. So if I'm hearing you correctly, a deferral to our next meeting late November would still keep us within the time frame?
Ms. Dewaria.
Your Worship, through you to the councillor, yes, that's correct.
And this would allow staff a bit more time to investigate the acceptance or non-acceptance of these properties by the owners?
Ms. Dewaria.
Your Worship, through you to the councillor, we have tried sending them registered letters, and we have tried contacting them through phone as well. So we'll give it one more try and see what we can do to achieve some kind of a response from them, and we'll get back to council.
Councillor Flagg.
In light of that, I think then that I would like to defer these four items until the 21st or 18th November, I believe will be the right meeting.
It would be the 18th of November.
18th of November then.
And that would be to have staff try further effort to communicate with the owners.
Correct, and to report on same.
And can I presume that that same rationale would apply to any other potential property designations that might be coming before us?
That would be my hope.
Okay. So there is no, so you've moved to defer. Is there a seconder for that, Councillor Lewis? There is no debate. We have the timing. All those in favor of deferring this to the November 18th meeting? Okay, that is carried. So that takes us through, no need to go to third and final reading, Councillor Dubanow. So that then takes us to Councillor Christensen. You have the first and second reading for the confirmatory bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDermott, that bylaw 113-2024 to confirm the actions of council at its council and committee meeting held on October 7th, 2024, and its council meeting held on October 21st, 2024 is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? That is carried. That takes us to Councillor Flagg for third and final reading.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott. The bylaw 113-2024 is given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and clerk under the corporate seal.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. That then takes us to scheduling of meetings. Councillor Dubanow and then Councillor Christensen.
Yes, Your Worship, the Museum and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee has a meeting scheduled this Wednesday. That is October 23rd. It's here at Town Hall in Conference Room 1. And I also...
What time is that at?
Oh, sorry, my apologies. That's at 1 p.m. And just so everyone's aware, I will be getting a haircut on Thursday this week, so that's scheduled as well.
I'm sure that was a great concern to the residents of Fort Erie,
It's a concern to me.
and no doubt your wife.
Yes.
Councillor Christensen.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Community Health Services Committee will meet on Tuesday, October 29th at 4 p.m., and the location in Town Hall has not yet been fully scheduled.
Thank you. Any other meetings that anyone wishes to announce? If not, then Councillor Dubanow, please do your thing.
Yes, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that council adjourns at 7:42 p.m. to reconvene into a regular meeting of council on November 18th, 2024.
Those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you, folks.